I know.
Here we go again.
All right, well, welcome back, guys. If you stuck around, we are doing TBM aside number. You know what? I'm not even gonna say numbers.
Two.
I'm not gonna say numbers. Let's just
Yeah,
let
yeah,
it
yeah.
leave it, and
They're what
where
they
people
are.
find them, they find them. They create their own timeline.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the planet of totally biased
yeah.
opinions over here.
So we're talking all three of the Planet of the Apes movies from the most recent trilogy. So I think it goes 2011 to 2017. So I've seen these movies a number of times. I did a rewatch. We wanted to do it in prep for Kingdom of Planet of the Apes. Was this your first run through, Anthony?
Yeah, man. So like I had seen the first one. So I freshman year of college, sophomore year of college when this one came out, and I did not see it in theaters, but I saw it on my own. And had I known that they were planning this kind of big old huge narrative, I probably would have been involved each time. But also, it's hard to exchange that prolonged experience for what I just experienced over the past 3 days. So
Yeah,
I got to watch each one every night, and I've really enjoyed it.
yeah.
So definitely excited to talk about it. And so have you seen them in theaters? I got a couple questions.
So I saw Dawn and War in theaters. I did not see Rise
Okay.
in theaters.
Now
Go ahead.
Now, do they have so it's been interesting this experience because I had to do some research to see about subtitles, right? So, like, subtitles are really necessary for these
Yeah,
films because there's so much body language. But in the theaters, do they show the
yeah,
subtitles?
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was seeing on Reddit how people who were doing rewatches were watching, Dawn and War without subtitles the whole film,
Really?
and I was very intrigued by that because like I work with animals professionally. I work with dogs professionally, and like body language and interpreting behavior is such a necessary, part of the job. But
Yeah.
like to get that people are watching 2 hours of films with I mean, of course there's sign language, but also just like interpretive body language is very like interesting to me.
Yeah, I would be
So
like
that
that.
was something I had to.
That's really interesting because there's so much sign language and like heavy spoilers by the way if you guys haven't watched the movies,
Yeah,
but
we're going in.
the like Caesar is really the only one that talks on a regular basis. Like Koba does talk and like there's a little talking from different apes in the movies, but like Caesar's really the only one speaking English on a regular basis. And so like they rely heavily on that sign language, but I think it's really cool. Like the lack of dialogue, verbal dialogue
Yeah.
in a sense, I think is really it makes for a really interesting movie because you really got to be locked into it. You got to be paying attention
Yeah.
to it. Um,
Yeah, it creates an atmosphere, around the tension and the emotions that they're feeling too. Like it's been cool to kind of go on this journey with Caesar because you see a development
yeah,
of a human
yeah,
in reality, right? I mean, so like you get to see experiences and learning, and then you get to feel emotion from a family connection, from a friendship connection, from a sacrificial
yeah,
connection, from like a do I kill this person or not? It's
yeah.
just like there's so much turmoil within him, which I think it's really well
I
done.
think it's what's really cool is like I really enjoyed doing it this time around because I watched them like back to back to back. Like I watched one and two. I went to sleep. I watched three in the morning. So like I
Oh
watched it
wow,
as like one movie essentially, which is almost how these
yeah,
films need to be viewed. Like this trilogy in
I
particular,
agree.
because it all feels like one storyline, and Caesar progresses in a way throughout that storyline that's super interesting. But we can talk more about the trilogy as a whole, but let's go movie by
Yeah.
movie. So what did you think of the first one? What were some highlights or some gripes
All
you
right.
had?
So yeah. So all right. So first movie, like I said, I had seen it in the past, and I think back as to why I wasn't as interested moving forward, and I think it had to do with like I don't know. I had a lot of internal struggle with the animals in captivity, the testing of animals, the psychosis that they're feeling, and these are all like themes that I deal with regularly, right? With shelters around here in the South, as far as like dog training and stuff and behavior consulting. So like that was I struggled with getting on board with the narrative of like James Franco's character just being so clueless as to like the situation in itself, right? You're taking a monkey home, right, from a testing facility, and do you not foresee, I guess, potential challenges that would happen? He just seemed so relaxed,
Yeah,
so it was very hard for me to buy into it early on. Um, but then as the movie kind of progressed, I just kind of, you buy into the idea of like whatever happened with James Franco and Caesar originally, it's happened now. So now we're in it,
yeah,
right? And I saw this second or this first film as a drug film, like in reality, right? So
yeah,
like James Franco is a I don't know what you would call it, a chemist or just whatever, a scientist who's making trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's, and it kind of goes in a different direction. But over the movie, you're starting to see the effects of this drug on Caesar and on some other people, whether it's a human or the other monkeys in itself.
yeah,
And I found that so interesting, just to kind of frame it that way. I framed all the movies in a certain context, and this one was the drug film of the trilogy.
yeah.
I love the scene of Caesar when Caesar busts in with the cans and he just slices the cans and like
Just
kind of
throws
smoke
them.
grenades
Yeah,
everybody, and then it cuts to the morning of when all the monkeys are waking up with like their eyes are glowing and shit.
yeah,
I was like, wow, this is a I fucking love this,
yeah,
So, like I said, the animal behaviorist in me was thrown off because like you're not controlling these monkeys with a catch pole. Like
right.
they use a catch pole to kind of, and I'm like, no, you got to sedate these monkeys and move them,
Yeah,
But so that was kind of just that threw me off. But like I said, it didn't take me out of the movie entirely. Um, I loved seeing Caesar's the first time he ever speaks.
dude.
It's like a
What's
really
re-
powerful moment.
What's really funny is I saw a tweet where somebody had posted Rise, like the poster for Rise, and they said, "Are we ready to admit this movie kind of sucks?" And then somebody quote tweeted it and said, "You clearly weren't there opening night in 2011 when Caesar said no for the first time," because everybody talks about like that. And I still remember the very first time I watched it when he says no, and like the actor's reaction, it was the same as mine. Is like, "What the fuck am I
Yeah.
watching, dude?" Like it's such an iconic moment in this trilogy, and God, it's they nail it. It's a haunting scene, but I think like
Right.
for me, like I watched it with somebody, and she like the struggle for me as well as her was it's if you're like even slightly empathetic, like the shit that Caesar goes through in this movie is sad, dude. Like it makes you
Oh yeah.
genuinely sad. Like when you could tell he's very distraught when the James Franco's dad is that guy's in his face. You can tell he's upset, and then when he's in the shelter and the owner or the handler's being rude to him, the monkeys are beating up on him. Like it kind of tugs at your heartstrings, right? And I kept telling her, like, I promise there's a redemption. Like, just give it some time. Like, it gets better, but
Yeah.
it's
Part of
like,
the ride.
yeah, it's hard to watch that. And I think like it's crazy. I one thing that really stuck out to me upon rewatch is like the CGI is so fucking good. There's so
I
much
agree.
like emotion in his face and his eyes and his mouth, like all of them, and it makes you feel like you're watching people. And also, I meant to tell you, I heard that the DVD release of Kingdom is going to have a version in the DVD where you can watch the movie with human actors, like with their CGI stuff on them.
With their mask
Yeah,
on.
like
Oh
with
wow.
the dots and stuff on them. So like there's no monkeys, like it's all human, which I would really be interested to watch to see kind of like compare that to the original. But yeah, the
Yeah.
CGI
I
really
mean,
stuck out to me.
they should. It's amazing. Like they should totally do that. Like the real question is why would they not have that out there? Same with Avatar. Like if James Cameron would just take the veil down, because we already know how it's being made in a sense, but like you now have, I mean, from a financial standpoint, a whole nother revenue stream,
Right.
as if he needs another one. But
Yeah.
like people would love to watch that from a consumer and an artistic appreciation standpoint.
Yeah.
And like, did you know the guy who plays Caesar was also Gollum in the Lord of the
I did
Rings
not know
trilogy?
that.
Yeah. So, and there's a couple other credits. So you might like this. He was King Kong in Peter Jackson's King Kong film. Um, so from a facial acting standpoint, he's done a lot of different roles. He had a couple roles in the Star Wars. Oh, he's gone. So we will take a moment while this is recording. I'll probably re-say those credits again while Blake has vanished for a moment. He's back. All right. Can you hear me, Blake? I can hear you now. Yeah. Sounds like the mic. Yeah. It sounds just a little like distant. So I wonder if your mic uh, is picking up. That's okay. We're rolling. Yeah, listeners, this is what you get with an aside. I mean, sometimes you get fluid conversations. Sometimes I'm looking at a tab, reading off Caesar's credits, and realize Blake is gone. So any moment he'll be back. But yeah, I would highly recommend digging into this guy. His name is Andy Serkis, and Circus is kind of a funny pun from all the characters he's
Okay.
playing. He's
Do
playing
I?
monkeys.
There we
Yeah,
go.
you
Do I
sound
sound
good
better?
now. Sounds better.
Okay. Yeah. My
Listeners
my
sound
uh
good. Yeah. No,
my
actually,
cat.
they said no.
No, it sounds like shit. My cat.
Yeah, no,
Fucking. This
you're good.
mic is so sensitive. But anyway, I didn't know. No, I didn't know that he played. I didn't know that he played
Okay.
Gollum.
Yeah, so he played Gollum. He played King Kong in the Peter Jackson film
Nice.
too. So homie's done a lot of roles. Andy Serkis is his name.
Nice.
So he's definitely worth checking into. But yeah, I agree, man. The CGI is very impressive, and I think that once people start to really dig into how it's being made, it just gets they get more appreciation for the actors playing those roles.
Yeah, it's got to be tough. I always assume that like being an actor in a movie that's heavily CGI is like it's a different level of acting in a sense that you don't know what that final product is going to look like, right? When you're watching or when
Yeah,
you're in the process of filming it. Um, but I thought like there's a lot of really cool moments in this movie. Like you said, the smoke canister one is a great scene. The very last scene when James Franco is basically trying to tell him like you can come home, and he says Caesar is home. Like that's such a
yeah.
poignant like last line of the movie, and just the movie as a whole, man. I really am impressed with all of them, and I really really enjoyed it. I think Rise is the perfect build up movie to get you invested into Dawn, and
Right. Yeah.
Dawn is a fucking ride, dude. Like,
Yeah.
so Dawn comes in, you get a human aspect now, right? Humans trying to rebuild the civilization. You get the apes have kind of established themselves, and they have a home, and
Have a
they've right
civilization.
a civilization, and they've grown, and they're having children and things like that. And I think there's a lot that goes into this, and Caesar really starts to become like a leader in the movie. But what did you think of Dawn?
All right, so Dawn 2014. So we got a new director too. We got Matt Reeves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I the first note I have because when I was watching this, I didn't have the subtitles on, for the first 15 minutes. So I had a little bit of that experience and had to kind of, dig around and make sure I had the subtitle file and figure that out. But if Rise is a drug film, Dawn is a zombie film or like a survival
Yeah, yeah,
film because it feels like they are constantly battling with the humans who are left. Plus, there's this simian flu virus that's taken over, mankind. Um, but it really you start to dig into a couple characters as far as apes go between Koba and Caesar. Koba being like I guess you could say Caesar part two, but he has been through a ton of shit as far as the testing
right.
aspect goes for this drug, right? What's the drug called again? Do you remember?
No, I don't. I don't remember.
Shit, I can't remember either. But anyway, NZT. Does that sound right?
Maybe.
NZT.
We should
Hold
probably
on.
know that,
Um,
considering we literally
yeah, we're gonna pull
just
this
fucking
up. Now
watched the
I know, right?
movies.
We're bragging about how we've seen every movie in the past 48
I
hours.
know.
So
I was too invested in everything else going on.
I can't find it. So viewers, or listeners, you have to find for yourself
Yeah.
whatever that drug is. But either way, it worked, and yeah, it changed the world for a good bit of time. So, but this movie, it digs into internal conflict within the ape civilization, right? I couldn't help but pull so many parallels between Koba and Caesar and Scar and Mufasa. Did
Yeah,
you get that
yeah, a hundred
vibe at
percent.
all? I mean, like, besides the obvious scar on his face, but like them, like Scar and Mufasa are brothers, right? And Koba and Caesar are like one and two for this ape civilization, and then they go through their conflict, right? I think it is an interesting parallel also to like humans, and whether it's a struggle for power or when you have tools that can do damage, how crazy that can become with those tools in the wrong hands.
Yeah,
Um, Koba goes into fucking crazy mode. It felt like a slasher film at that point where he's just like fucking Scarface and machine gunning people.
yeah,
Like there's some crazy like parallels between. I had The Lion King in mind. I had Scarface in mind. The Godfather in mind. Sometimes when Caesar is talking to the other monkeys about like what do we do? It's just like th- there's big narratives happening, but it didn't take away, like it didn't feel cheesy or corny at all. Like it felt totally necessary.
yeah.
Um,
I liked that there
so I mean,
was.
there,
I liked that there was like. There's so much conflict in the sense that there's the conflict of the humans in the city and the humans trying to go repair the dam. There's conflict within the humans repairing the dam, right? There's the one guy who brings the gun when he's not supposed to bring the gun, and like he clearly hates the
right.
apes. Like there's conflict there. Then there's
Hmm.
conflict with Caesar and them, Caesar and Koba, Caesar and the rest of like the group, and the way this movie like kind of unfolds and starts to play out,
Yeah.
like it sucks you in and gets more and more intense like as you continue to kind of go down this rabbit hole. um but there's some real kind of shocking moments that you don't really know how to respond to in this movie. Like when Caesar beats the shit out of Koba, right? Like you could tell everybody, like the apes, the humans are visibly uncomfortable. The moment where Koba shoots Caesar, you're like, what the
Right.
fuck? And then Maurice looks at the
Hmm.
humans and he's like, run, like just get the
Yeah.
fuck out of
Right.
here, dude. Like there's just so
Hmm.
many intense moments in that scene where Koba. I love the scene where Koba goes to the guy shooting the guns and is acting like a dumbass ape, and then he
Yeah.
gets the
Exactly.
rifle and just
You see.
just shoots him
Hmm.
immediately.
Like that scene, along with him framing Caesar, or framing the humans for shooting him, right? It's like the idea is there's deception from the apes or from Koba, right? And it's like it's wild to think how societies can get so twisted
Yeah,
with just within a matter of moments. All it takes is one person to shift the narrative in a way that causes corruption, and then you have an all-out war breaking out,
yeah,
right? Because I think there was such a hopeful part in the early parts of the movie when Caesar and the human male are trying to work together in a sense of like, we'll stay out of your way. All we need is to fix this. And Caesar, of course, is like, yes,
yeah.
but under these circumstances. So there was so much compromise as far as a society working together. But what tends to corrupt happens
Yeah, and I think
right in
like
front of your
it's
eyes.
cool. Like it's obviously a very cliche narrative, and it's very apparent,
Yeah.
right? That they're supposed to be parallel to us, and they're showing like they're an exact replica of us in the sense that they're corrupted the same way, their power dynamics are the same. But
Right.
it's really interesting to see Caesar. It's almost a political message in the sense that like what is the how viable is pacifism like as a solution, right? How much can you be a
Right.
diplomatic, no violence? You have Koba who wants only violence, and you have Caesar who wants no violence, and it's like they're kind of making this argument that neither one of those things is going to work out the way that you want it to, and it's an interesting
Hmm.
dynamic with the apes and the humans because at the end of the day, like even Caesar says it at the end, he says something to the effect of like we're just like them, we're not that different than
Exactly.
humans, which I think
Hmm.
is a great ending. And I don't know if you want to get into this now or if you want to wait until we talk about war, but a lot of people, the common like consensus is that Dawn is the best one of the trilogy. What do you think? Do you have thoughts on that, or do you think that War is better?
I mean, I think it all depends on how you look at these films, right? I mean, Rise being an intro, a kind of like setting of the stage, right? And of everything that happens in Rise affects everything else down the line, even from the guy I don't know the actor's name. The guy from Tucker and Dale versus Evil. You ever seen that
No.
movie? All right. In the future, we'll put a pin on that.
Yeah.
But the guy who gets contaminated and ends up, sneezing, and then like
Yeah.
he's like patient zero as far as a human standpoint. He I forget why I was even bringing him up, but as far as like if we're looking at the better of the films, that sets the stage for what's to come. Dawn is heavy action.
Yeah.
I think Dawn has the most
Yeah.
action of all of them. And then War, I see as like a revenge film, but also a travel film. Like there's a lot of relocating within War, whereas Dawn is more. It's the dam plus
San
the
Francisco.
jungle or the woods. I mean, yeah, exactly, and then into the city.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'll save, I guess, which one I like more for the end.
Yeah.
But there was also Dawn has like the first. There's only a couple like needle drops in this series. I'm excited to see if there's going to be one in Kingdom. But the band is called the band, and the song is called The Weight. The Weight is an epic song. It's that. Take a load off,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's when they're at the gas station.
Yeah.
It's a classic song, and to hear it in like in that moment, like the power comes on and someone goes in the gas station to play some music and it's that song, and like it's just so fucking cool.
Yeah.
So like mad props for that. um but but yeah, it's definitely hard. Like I said, I think they're all great movies. I don't think they're like amazing movies, right? But for what they are and for where they fit within the series, it all works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but there is interesting, like you said, there's some internal conflict happening, I think, throughout this entire thing. Whereas like, Koba and Caesar, their thing was like, I mean, Caesar doesn't really kill Koba, he just doesn't save him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's another like spot on, feels like it's pulled right out of the Lion King scene where he's hanging onto the ledge,
Right.
and in the Lion King, Simba, lets go, but in this case, he just doesn't help him.
Yeah.
So I'm still not convinced. Well, I guess we can save it, but like I'm not convinced Koba's dead. Are you?
Yeah, I mean I am because the new one takes place 250 years after this
Oh, okay,
trilogy.
shit.
Yeah. So
Unless he got a new drug.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that is an interesting like theory, right? Because it doesn't the way that he dies, it's like you don't think he's going to die because he gets caught on the rope and then falls on the construction or whatever. But like that scene
Oh
is
yeah, I guess so.
that scene
Yeah, it's pretty
is
crazy.
so good and like the very ending of all the apes like bowing down to Caesar at the end of that movie is such a great send off. And then we get into
Yeah.
War, man, and
Yeah. Right.
War is a fucking ride, dude. And we'll have to talk more about final rankings at the end, but War is it's really interesting, right? The opening scene is super there's a lot of
Oh
action,
yeah.
it's very dramatic, it's intense. Like I love the shot of the soldiers walking up and the guy has monkey killer painted on the back of his
There's
helmet.
a couple. Yeah, there's a couple different sayings that are like very telling of like their position against the apes,
Yeah,
right?
and you find out
Um.
that they now have like apes working for them, like the humans have apes working
Mhm.
for them. And so that opening scene is great. But what were your initial thoughts on War?
Dude, I really dug it. Like I was of course, trying to see where this film is going to go. Is it going to play out like a huge epic battle, or these bunch of mini battles? But once, once you realize, okay, like you see the three lights from the sights of I guess you could say the army. We're just going to call them the army. The green lasers, they go down the waterfall, and Caesar's the only one that sees them. And you start to realize, all right, shit is picking up at this point.
Yeah,
And once you find out his wife and son have been murdered, then that's when it clicks for me to say, all right, Caesar is now on a revenge trail
yeah,
to one kill the colonel, but also to save his people. I mean, he's always his ethics are pretty clear, I think throughout the film. But Caesar kills some fucking people in this
yeah,
movie,
he
and that's
does.
like something that we haven't seen yet, right?
Yeah,
Except for Koba, I guess. But like, um, there's a lot of like I said, there's a lot of still conflict between him, when he's faced with the colonel,
yeah,
right? I mean, he's conflicted about what to do. Um,
He
So
changes a
I dug
lot,
it.
dude. He changes a lot in this movie. Like you can tell that the events of the last movies have weighed on him because bro looks rough, dude. He's got some gray hair.
Oh,
Like he gets shot, I think, at one point with an arrow. Like he's gone through
oh
some
yeah.
shit at this point, dude. And
Yeah, he's also hallucinating Koba.
yeah,
Like there's nightmares and there's hallucinations of him, which that kind of kept the seed planted of like, is he
yeah,
gonna pop? Is he gonna
yeah,
come back? What's gonna happen? But I love that kind of storytelling, right?
yeah,
Because it's not clear that it's a hallucination until obviously after the fact. But a lot of interesting parallels too with this. Like Woody Harrelson's character is almost like Apocalypse Now kind of character,
yeah,
where Marlon Brando's kind of like he has minimal scenes in the movie, but he's this figurehead that's being spoken about or being alluded to throughout the film, and that's the Colonel. You know, I mean, the monkeys are talking about him regularly, and then Caesar has multiple interactions with him, but yeah, I love that. I love that kind of like mythical figure that's in the back that is about to or that has a big impact in the movie.
yeah. And it's really interesting to see how the new kind of subplot here, the new group of people are the people that have the mutated virus, right? They have it, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
have it. It makes them mute, but they don't actually have the full virus. And that's a huge play into why, the colonel is doing what he's doing, right? He still doesn't view them as people. He kills them throughout the movie. They show glimpses of it when when they find those people in the snow that he's killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then they meet the little girl who can't talk that is with them, who I
Right.
love her character. Like I love her character in the
Yeah,
movie. She's so great. And
I
it's
agree.
it's really interesting, like the dynamics there, because again more you have more human conflict, right? In a totally different way. And it's interesting because there's a lot of like, for a movie called War for the Planet of the Apes, there's a lot of slow moments in this. There's a lot of like dialogue moments that are important. There's a lot of moments where like sign language is happening, and there's not like there is fighting, right? There's a huge war at the
Mm-hmm.
end. There's the war at the beginning. There's some battle scenes, but like as a whole, it's not a very violent, like chaotic movie. But there's a war
Yeah.
going on. Caesar within himself, Caesar between the Colonel, like the rival human armies, and there's just a lot at play in this
Yeah.
movie that it never feels like it's too much. Like they balance it perfectly to kind of have this impending threat. And then when Caesar gets ends up in the camp, that's when like the movie kicks into high gear, right? That scene where
Right.
the colonel puts the pistol up against his head and he leans into it is like such a
Oh yeah.
badass fucking
Gangster.
scene. It's so gangster,
Gangster.
dude. I love
Hmm.
it, and I just there's a
Yeah.
lot in that movie that's really really good.
Yeah. There's a Jimi Hendrix needle drop. I think when Caesar's like in captivity, um, Hey Joe plays, which is fucking cool. But there's also comedic relief in this film. The little the Hobbit hermit kind of
Yes,
monkey that they
dude,
find.
he's so bad ape. He calls himself
He's
bad ape.
oh yeah 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 yeah. That's a great yeah. We should just call him Bad Ape. He's hilarious, you know, in his films or his part as far as like he one when he's talking to them and he's like no don't go there, don't go there, whatever I'm not going there,
Yeah,
he sticks his head out of the hole where it's like just his eyes,
yeah,
and people are like what. And then there's a part at the end, I wrote down shit flinging diversion, where they like throw shit at the guard
yeah.
and he's like who the fuck, and then someone else throws shit on him. Like the only I was thinking when I watched the first movie, I was like the only thing that would make this more realistic is if monkeys were shitting and fucking in the background for the entire film, you know, because like when your brain goes into hyperdrive, you got priorities, right, and they're repopulating, that's for
I
sure.
have to read
But
you. I have to read you this tweet. Somebody posted a picture of him when he's wearing his jacket and his beanie and his pants, and he has his thumb up like this, and it says, "Matt Reeves knew what he was doing with this guy right here. Just look at this drip. Bad ape? Nah, bro. I'd smoke with him and make sure to ask him his thoughts on everything. Realest one in the trilogy."
he's one that you would like to have a conversation with,
Yeah,
mostly
he's
just to figure out what all he's been through.
yeah, and I love that. Like, it's cool to see. So when they first introduce him, you think he's a human, right? He's in a jacket. They don't show him.
Right, right.
He steals the horse. He
Yeah,
rides
show him
off,
the back.
and then when he comes out, I think it was really cool to show that he came from a zoo. And I think they even say at one point, like, are there
Right.
others like you, right? Like, where are those people? Where did they come from? Things like that. And I think it's cool to introduce those dynamics of like, there's other apes out there that weren't involved in this whole shit to begin with, and now they're
Hmm.
kind of out there
Well,
around somewhere, you know?
yeah, because like I mean, there was something. It might have been in the first or second film where they were talking about what to do with the apes who have been through the testing. And some were euthanized, but then some were just shipped out. Caesar, I mean, being a prime example of going to a containment center with other apes. So it's like, yeah, that trickle effect is massive, and I think maybe in Kingdom there may be some. I don't know. I don't know what to expect with Kingdom, honestly. I mean, I haven't read anything, but you said it's like 200 some years in the future.
Yeah,
Like it's, I love though. I will say this: I love what they've done by telling this story because I had to look back and see. I had not seen any of the original Planet of the Apes, but I had seen the Tim Burton one, and the Tim Burton one is very reflective of the their original series where it's like there's already a planet established and humans land on it or
right.
aliens land on it and then kind of start dealing with it.
Yeah.
So that is something that I found very admirable to tell this part of the story. So I was very pleased with that.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to see. Like, I like movies that kind of that you're familiar with the world, right? But it shows kind of that what led up to that. Like Prometheus and Covenant for the Alien series is a lot like that, right? It's showing how kind of this world came to be and the aliens started and things of that nature. And like if you look at like I said, Peter Jackson's King Kong is a lot like that too. Like it takes you from the very beginning to the whole, it kind of builds this world for you in a really interesting way. And I think Planet of the Apes Rise did a really good job with that. And like I
Yeah,
like that it's you start with a normal world, normal humans, and you watch it kind of devolve into what it becomes.
exactly.
And it's really, really interesting. And man, that scene at the end where the Colonel gets the mutation, the disease, right? And like you can
Yeah.
tell that
Hmm.
he gets it from the doll, from the girl, and you could tell like he clearly I think this scene is so funny though. When war is like breaking out and they're outside of like his office or whatever, and they're like, "Where the fuck is he? Like, what the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
Because war's breaking out, he's nowhere to
Right.
be found. They're like, "Bro, you
Mm-mm.
let this out to dry, man. What the fuck are you doing?" So
Right.
I think that's
And then
really
like
funny.
the tension of the moment with Caesar with the gun, right? And the colonel's like puts it to his own head, and of course, in your heart, you're like, don't want Caesar to kill him, but in reality, you want to see the colonel die. So it's like, how does this happen? And obviously, he ends up shooting himself out
Yeah,
off screen, but still, what a moment to build
dude,
to,
so much
right? I think
tension.
they do really good at, and it's Caesar. Caesar's at the heart of every film of like when there's a choice to make, right? What choice is he going to make? So it's really really well done in that sense, and I love too the end, right? When Caesar's like last words are "apes home now,"
Yeah,
it's like
and then
that.
he just peacefully
Hmm.
just passes away, man. Like great goodbye.
Yeah,
And like the girl I was watching it with was fucking furious that he was dead. She's like, I'm not fucking watching Kingdom. Like, fuck that. Our boy is dead. I'm like, yeah, but he did what he like, that was his whole goal. He achieved his goal. It's over. Like he saved them. He took them to the promised land. Like, what more do you want from him? He's not
exactly.
gonna live forever. Look at the shit bro's been through, you know? And
Hmm.
I
Exactly.
do like that they give that one gorilla his redemption arc where Caesar is trying to blow up the tanks and then he gets shot with the
Yeah,
arrow and then the gorilla blows that guy up with the grenade
grenades.
launcher. It's so fucking good.
Hmm.
And like and you know
Oh
that
yeah,
like it's a great scene in the sense that like he does it, he gets his redemption, and then just immediately gets shot in the
but
head. Like,
he gets
just
killed.
yeah,
Yeah,
but it's like
I mean,
you
but
went out
like
on a high note.
these films are ruthless, and like as it should be, like there's no in that from like in that from that military guy's standpoint, there's no conversation to be had.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're now a fucking liability and a traitor, so you got to
Boom.
go.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So like I love how this film doesn't hold back in a sense.
Yeah.
um and it's interesting that these films all rated PG-13, right?
Oh, are they
I mean,
really? I didn't
because
even
like
notice
the
that
violence,
actually.
I'm pretty sure they are.
That
I
would
mean,
make
I guess we can
sense,
look it
like
up.
box
But
office wise.
yeah, I mean, you make your money, but also you can show monkeys getting shot all day long, or CGI monkeys getting shot all day long, I guess,
Yeah,
because I mean, there's no really no holds bars on their violence,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But but
I think
yeah,
that scene at
I'm
I
excited.
do think that scene at the very end when Caesar gets out and all the humans from the rival military are like celebrating or whatever, and then one guy sees Caesar and they all kind of like turn and look at Caesar and they're all just staring at
They
each other
start
for a
pulling the gun up.
second. Yeah, and then he raises the gun
Mhm.
and the fucking avalanche comes and they're like, all right, fuck this, we got other shit to deal with. And
Yeah,
that scene with the
exactly.
avalanche is so intense.
The
Like it's
avalanche is
dude, when Caesar's hauling ass through the woods to try to like get to a tree and it's just fucking barreling down the mountain, like it's a crazy ass scene. So like I said,
and that go
I
ahead.
was gonna say CGI wise, like the whole trilogy kills it, but like that scene in particular is fucking exhilarating.
Yeah. And I think that's like the elements that they're dealing against too. That's really like it's really a they're not it's not been addressed throughout the series from to my knowledge. You know, they're dealing with a virus and they're dealing with, you know, humans and they're dealing with weapons, but like in that moment now they're dealing against the earth itself, right?
Yeah.
Um but yeah, wild ass scene.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked them, but I'm gonna make you pick a favorite. So you got to pick a favorite out of the three.
Oh damn. Uh I would probably go with Dawn. You know, I mean the action aspect in itself, but shit, man. I mean, Rise though it really does hold a special place. Like I can't get over that scene of Caesar busting in and just dropping cans of
Yeah.
gas and just dosing everybody. I wrote Caesar doses up the squad.
Yeah.
You know, and like the morning after shot is just like it's the dawn. That
Yeah.
is the real dawn of like the enlightenment
Yeah.
of the monkeys. So it's like once that happens, there is no going back because now you've just elevated your species,
Yeah.
right? So like those moments are hard to top. So I guess I would have to say I'll say Rise just for what it is, you know, for what it builds to.
Well,
But I can pull
I've been
stuff out of
snooping
all of
on
them.
your letterbox, and you put Rise at a 3 and you put Dawn at a 4. So you got to go back and change some
Now
ratings, I
I
think.
might have to go back, and I haven't even put in War yet, but I'll probably give them all a 4. I would think.
Yeah.
I got a dog over here who's just gotten into socks, and she's having a blast over here. But yeah, so but I'll probably give them all fours. I
Yeah.
think. But that's the thing. I had no idea where it was going,
Yeah.
right? And when you see that film in itself, it is a good film. But when you look at it in the context of all these films, it is a much better
Yeah.
film
No, I agree.
because of the tone that it sets. And different director, different vibe. I mean, Matt Reeves definitely has this like big arc storytelling down,
Yeah.
you know, to a science. But it's like that first film is really primal. You know,
Yeah.
it is really raw in a sense. Like there's I don't think any songs in that movie just score, but it's a very like jungle esque
Yeah.
score. So
Well, and
I
like
like
I
that.
think one of the I think Rise like I think Rise is probably my favorite. I think Dawn's the better movie. You know, we've had that debate before about what is
Right.
better and what you like better. Like I think I like Rise more, but like you said, comparing it to everything else. And I love that in Dawn they come back to the house and he sees the footage
Right.
of him with James Franco and like
That's super cool.
that scene is like man I there's not a lot in this movie that like makes me kind of choke up. That scene where he's watching the footage of himself learning how to say it's like apple and home or whatever, and then he
Mhm.
tells him he's like, oh, he's like, who is that? And he's like, a good man. It's just like, oh, it
Yeah,
just tugs
right.
at your heartstrings. It's
That's
so
the
good.
redemption. Yeah, that's the redemption because the heartbreaking scene in the first film, I mean, there's a couple, but like when he's in his cell and he's got his window drawn
Yeah,
on the wall and then he kind of just like marks through it, like
yeah. He's like,
that's like, damn, like he's letting go of this like this initial connection that he had, but to have them go back, I think felt so right,
yeah,
and it works. You know, it definitely works.
yeah,
There's a lot of emotions in this film, and the cool thing is, like you said, minimal dialogue
right,
between them.
yeah.
So so that does make for something really really cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for Kingdom. We'll be talking about it next week, and
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see
do it
what
in
they do. It's going to be a
IMAX.
whole different story, a whole different dynamic. So I'm excited for it, and well, I'm
Yeah,
excited to talk about it. But yeah, I will.
yes sir.
I'll
New
probably
director
Yeah, true. I will probably make this an audio episode because I fucked up the video, or my cat fucked up the video. So I'm gonna have to chop it up and stuff, but it'll be out some.
You know, you can let her. If it gets my audio, it should be all right.
Yeah,
You can listen back to it
yeah, for sure.
about 10 minutes into it, maybe.
Yeah.
But
All right.
it was good.
Hell yeah, man. Great talk. We'll be back. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Hell
See
yeah.
you, brother.
Peace, brother.